the leaders who followed me, and all of the women who have served and supported us for nearly a century. Because of this, and the fact that our association has survived and thrived for 90 years, I felt a need to put together as much of our history as possible, which you have received tonight. I'm sure I didn't know what I was getting into when I started this project. It was a challenge and a long process. I discovered that many of our records and history were lost. I have been successful in finding a picture of every champion, uncovering missing presidents, years of runners-up, and the names of every medalist, records of whom have only been kept in recent years. I want to share a few things with you that are in the book. It is only fitting that we recognize our very first champion and founder, Mrs. William J. Patterson of the Grace Harbor Country Club. And incidentally, one of our co-medalists this year is from Grace Harbor, Gretchen Klein. You will read some interesting things about this lady in the book, but I have to tell you, she was way ahead of the curve for her time. Her first name was Frank. Now, Frank Patterson was a masterful woman, as her name implies. She had a sharp mind and a take-charge attitude that served her many interests well. She was president of a bank, and in World War I, she was a very important figure in Washington State, serving as chairman of committees for women's services. She was outspoken and an avid supporter of women's suffrage. And of course, for many years, the leading light of the Grace Harbor Country Club. She dominated the female members and cowed the men, which seemed to be both her intention and her reputation. Now, Frank preferred to play with the men, and consequently, she arranged many tournaments that included both sexes. It was at her instigation that the WSWGA was founded on August 22nd of 1922. Following the qualifying round of that first championship, the main attraction was the official formation of the Washington State Women's Golf Association. It would be a unique organization, the first women's golf association in Washington State, solely designed for women and managed exclusively by women. Unsurprisingly, Frank was not only the first champion, but she was elected president of the new association. Now, the first WSWGA tournament was declared a resounding success, and it was decided to make it an annual event. According to Miss Helen Farrell of the Seattle Golf Club, who was the medalist, she was quoted in the paper as saying, "The women could not have had a better tournament. This is our own show. We do not have to take a back seat to anyone. We own the course, and our matches have the right of way. I would rather play in this kind of tournament than any I have ever attended, and I'm looking forward to next year." Now, in my research of 1922, I found another interesting article that actually really caught my eye, and the headline was, "Yakima to Stage Golf Play. Cue taken from women to play in September." Quoting from that article, taking a cue from the Women's Washington State Golf Championship Tournament, the men will hold a state championship at Yakima. A Washington State Golf Association will be formed. This is one of the few states of the country that has not held such state tournaments. The credit for starting this scheme goes to the Grace Harbor women, whose idea for a state tournament for women gave them the idea. In 1927, for the first time, Oregon, California, and British Columbia sent players to the WSWGA's biggest tournament yet. In addition to the regular caddy corps, 100 Boy Scouts were recruited and trained for several weeks in order to participate to caddy in this week-long tournament. This championship was won by Mrs. Kenneth Reed of Portland, Oregon, who is also an Oregon State champion. She beat Mrs. C.C. Carey of Inglewood in the finals. Now, a month later, Mrs. Carey went down to Oregon and beat Mrs. Reed in the finals of Oregon. In 1928, our trophy again left this state with Miss Margaret Murphy of Columbia Edgewater Golf Course in Oregon winning the title. In 1929, there were 175 contestants and the entry fee was $5. For the first time, the state championship was closed to all competitors outside the state of Washington and to clubs inside the state that did not hold association membership. This championship was won by Hilda McAuslin, later Hilda McAuslin dead. And she had only played golf for 2 years, and she dropped her handicap from a 30 to a 3 in that amount of time. This lady was the most decorated WSWGA champion of her era, having won 5 state titles in 8 years. And 20 years later, she won her 6th title. She also was a very successful businesswoman and an expert knitter and master dancer. She was truly the queen of golf in Washington State during her era, and a 1930s golf publication called her the ideal American girl. Now in 1932, Rainier hosted 167 contestants and the legendary Elizabeth Swan was president. Now some of the milestones of that championship was the Washington Athletic Club was the headquarters for the WSWGA Championship. All competitors were entitled to free wax services. And there was a big splash party at the WAC and tea parties every day. Now each contestant was provided with a caddy, and for the first time outside of the PNGA tournament, fully equipped press headquarters were established at the tournament site. Now, when I told Jane Harris this, she said, geez, I felt really lucky just to get snacks at the tournament. In 1933, a week after the WSWGA Championship, the Washington State Public Links held their very first state championship at Alomar Golf Course in Tacoma. Unable to join the Public Links with the WSWGA because the fields would undoubtedly be too large, the Public Links women created their own association. And in their first tournament, 16 clubs participated. Now, during their tournament, they issued a challenge to the WSWGA. Their champion would play our champion, and it would be a 36-hole match with 18 holes being played at each champion's home course. At stake was the title of Washington State champion. They had a gallery of several hundred people for that match. And Miss Hilda McAuslin won the match 5-3 and was declared the all-around champion of the Evergreen State. The public links champion and challenger, some of you will enjoy this, was future Rainier legend Ruth Bush. In the 1930s, there was a golf publication called Northwest Golfer and Country Club. And in 1934, this is what they wrote about the WSWGA. No moss is allowed to grow under the feet of the official family of the Washington State Women's Golf Association. They're up and going all the time, doing this and that to the betterment of the game among their sisterhood. And looking ahead, planning bigger and better tournaments for the coming year. For many years, if there were ties for medalists, sometime during the tournament, those people had to go out and play another 9 holes to determine who would get the medalist trophy. Well, in 1949 at the Broadmoor Golf Club, Mrs. John Barron won the trophy after an 18-hole playoff with 15-year-old Patty Lesser. In 1950, the Seattle Times wrote an article about teenagers Ruth Jessen, Ann Post, and Pat Lesser. Now, all 3 of these people have won national junior titles, and they were entered in the WSWGA tournament. And this is what they wrote about. The entry of these 3 young women in the WSWGA championship gave the tournament importance such as few states can boast. In 1972, Rainier, well, we've heard Rainier a lot tonight. Rainier hosted the 50th anniversary of the WSWGA. There were 160 contestants, 40 on a waiting list, and 36 member clubs participated. The entry fee was $12.50. And the champion was Liz Culver. So it is my hope that as you read and browse through this book, that you will have an even deeper understanding and appreciation for this very special event that has captivated the interest and passion of women golfers for so many years. One of the joys of our state championship is its aura of reunion, a blending of past players, young players, new players, young players, older players. For 90 years, these reunions have been held. 90 years of winning and losing, of friendships, of suspense, of laughter, of camaraderie. The success of this association is a tremendous accomplishment, a result of enormously hard work and dedication, and a tribute to the passion and excitement of the game of golf at all